Hello, I'm Kate Burke, and this is another in a series of sessions created to help you find your speaking voice. Today we're going to talk about vocal confidence. What makes vocal confidence different than regular personal confidence? Well, it has to do with inflection. When we're committed to what we're saying, when we have researched it, when we know our content, we make strong statements of fact. And we recognize strong statements of fact by their arced inflection from high to low. We also recognize questions as statements which arc up at the end and sound unfinished. So many young speakers are speaking what's known as valley speak, which may have begun in the San Fernando Valley in California, a manifestation of many young women speaking in this way, but now many young men all over the country are speaking in the same way. It may have to do with media and so much American television reaching listeners all over the country and even in other countries. So, how can we remedy this problem or this obstacle? Well, I'll make a few suggestions, but first I'd like to demonstrate a little bit of valley speak or upward inflections. I'll do it on the Gettysburg Address, which ought to be doubly amusing. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Well, either they're created equal or they're not. Okay, so all those upward inflections grab the ear and the ear gets tired of them. And you begin to wonder, well, what does the speaker believe? What does the speaker stand for? What does this speaker buy into? So, I'd like to give you a gesture that you can use to practice on your own before you do a presentation in public. And it's simply drawing an arc in the air when you get to a key word that you definitely want to finish. So I'm going to do that with one hand or the other when I get to keywords in the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. You can do it on phrases too, that all men are created equal. You could also almost graph it by putting dotted points, that all men are created equal. And you can think that even if you're not doing it physically. It gives a listener a sort of a pattern. I was going to say a ladder, but that's not quite right because we want to go down. Well, I guess we could say we're going down the ladder. Anyway, the voice loves an inflected melody that hits equal intervals. And the listener goes with that and can predict, oh, she's going to go a little bit lower, she's going to go this much lower, now she's going to finish. And it's lovely for the ear to participate and think, I get what's going on, I'm part of this. All right, so now we're going to use a helium balloon release on the final words. But it's going to be not a release up, but a release down to help you find that lower inflection. So again, how much force or effort do you need to release a helium balloon? None, basically. So if you can somehow imagine that you're holding the helium balloons in your hands and they're not going to rise for some reason, when you get to those end words, just gently drop them. So here we go. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. It's a lovely light way of releasing something and letting it resolve in a downward arc. Now, I'm going to give you some resistance. I call this exercise the devil's advocate exercise. And I'd like you to imagine, as I am speaking these words, that you are speaking them, and I'm going to provide you the resistance of questioning you and giving you some alternatives to what you're saying, alternative words, to prompt you to stand by these words and repeat them. So here I go. I sort of be speaker and devil's advocate. 77 years ago, our fathers, your great aunts, our fathers. Okay, but did you hear that I used volume? That's what everybody does when I do this exercise. Not about volume, it's about definition and clarity. It's not the great aunts, okay? It's the fathers. So here I go to do more. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. They're created somewhat alike, identical. All men are created equal. So you see, if you provide yourself with that resistant, questioning opposite to what you're saying and give yourself a chance to repeat it, you will feel how much is required to commit to a word so that in a presentation the listeners are certain that you are standing by what you say. And I'll finish by saying that this also applies to the way that you say your own name when you introduce yourself before a presentation. Let me illustrate for you the pattern that I hear over and over again. My name is Kate Burke. I'm an associate professor at the University of Virginia, and I specialize in the speaking voice. Okay, can you predict the pattern? I'm and I do and I do Now, I sit in rooms of people where they introduce themselves, and I hear it over and over again. It sounds so tentative, so uncommitted. So practice introducing yourself. Here's one version of my practice. My name is Kate Burke. I'm an associate professor at the University of Virginia, and I specialize in the speaking voice. We should be proud of what we do and passionate about it. So practice making strong statements and inflecting downward in your words, and practice introducing yourself and saying your own name, because it's not easy. I hope to see you next time.